Hi, it's Michelle Thompson, your academic and life coach, and today I'm on Facebook Live here with my weekly writing tip. As you know, I worked as a lawyer, I'm currently in academia, and I've been doing a lot of my own writing myself, and I just want to share with you some of the things I've learned and some of the resources I've used to get there. Right now we're in number 3 of a 4-part series about editing, right? We've all written something and it doesn't quite work, right? It doesn't matter if you're a lawyer or a graduate student or a part-time or full-time professor, right? We've all been in this spot. Or you've written something, you're like, it doesn't work. The sentences on their own might be flawless, but the whole piece doesn't quite gel the way you want it to, in the way that you intended it to. So the solution to this problem is actually in how we edit and what we're looking for as we edit, and that's what this series is designed to handle. We assume that with the same kind of editing fixes will work all the time, and that's actually not true, right? You have to, different kind of edits are required for extensive works, especially like academic articles. And so this series is designed to help us figure out the kinds of writing challenges and the kind of editing that we actually need to do. So with that said, you should know that everything I'm saying here is based on Wendy Belcher's book, Writing an Academic Article in 12 Weeks. I totally recommend you get it. It's pricey, but it's a resource you'll come back to over and over again, particularly if you do academic writing. And in this book, so much of it is about how to edit, how to take a piece that you've written and turn it into something that you want to publish, right? And she incorporates all manner of help for academic writers. So today, like I said, we're editing for evidence. Next week, we're going to be editing for grammar. All right, so let's begin. What is evidence? If you're a lawyer, you have your own set of thoughts about that. But frankly, evidence depends on the discipline. What it actually looks like depends on the discipline. If you are a quantitative researcher, you are a researcher that uses data, statistical information, and that's what you're interpreting. And so your evidence is statistical. If you are a historian, like myself, but many fields do this, many fields use actually historical evidence. And Belcher defines that as data collected in relationship to time and the relationship of people to periods and events. So it's data that shows the relationship between people and particular events. And it's found in archives, and they're often governmental archives. The places I've gone have been Kew in London, the Jamaican Archive in Kingston, or Spanish Town, actually, and colleges and universities tend to have these kinds of archives as well, right? There is also geographic evidence, where it's data that does an examination of the relationship of people to place and environment, relationship of people to place and environment. And archaeological evidence is one clear example of geographic evidence. There's also textual evidence, right? People who do work in literature, for example, will take data from texts. And so examples of that, actually, and historians use this quite a bit: diaries and novels, poems, shiplogs, histories, sacred books, court testimonies. Those are all the kinds of evidence that people use when they're using textual evidence. There's also artistic evidence: images, paintings, photographs, sculptures, maps, films, videos, television, and live events. So yes, those are the many, many different types of evidence, and those are, you might use one or many different kinds of those types of evidence throughout your article, but you want to make sure that you have enough of it and it actually drives your argument, right? So the next question becomes, how do you write up all of this evidence, right? You get all this evidence and now you're supposed to turn it into something. How do you do that? Well, it depends on your discipline. For the social sciences, you actually have very concrete and specific formats that are expected of you as you do your writing, right? So it starts with the method section, and the method section is there describing what you did to conduct the research. The next section is the results section that describes what you found, the data that you collected, and what's new about what you have to offer, right? Because if you collected data that someone else did, no one's actually going to be interested in publishing your article. So, and to explain the data that you have, it's really helpful to have tables and graphs. It makes a lot of data very easy for people to digest. You also have to make sure that that evidence is actually organized around the argument, that you're not actually just describing the data that you collected, but you actually use it to drive your argument. The next section is a discussion, which is the most important part for publication if you are a social scientist, right? And you want to make sure that you have a clear, easy to follow discussion that really pulls on the evidence that you use to make sense of it. Structure your discussion around your argument. Structure it around your argument. That is critical. The humanities, well, we're a lot more freewheeling, although we have although it's very clear what we're doing, right? And the approach to how you analyze your evidence depends on the field. It actually depends on the field. And there are different types of analyses that we employ. There's close readings, right? You dig into the meaning of individual words and tropes to reveal the text truths and beauties. That's one way that we do, close reading is one way that we do that kind of analysis. There's cultural studies, and I heard that term, she wrote that, and I'm like, what? I hate cultural studies. But when she breaks it down this way, it's like, yes, of course, and it turns out that's a lot of what I do. Cultural studies actually analyzes things in a way so that the text reproduces the conflicts of the period or culture and knowledge systems, or it highlights the text highlights particular social and political contradictions. That's exactly what I do. So you can see with what she's saying how these are actually both structural recommendations, particularly if you're a social scientist, and a discussion about evidence in particular, right? Both of these components are very important for understanding what you're editing and how you're editing it, right? So what's next? Now that you know the kind of evidence, now that you know the ways in which people handle and analyze that evidence, how do I actually edit my piece for the evidence? So what you want to make sure at first that you do is understand the kind of evidence that you're using in the field, which is why I started with all of that. So take some time, talk to a colleague, and be very clear what both of you are doing, right? And what kinds of things are expected, because if you don't use the right kind of evidence, your work doesn't actually get published. The next thing you want to do is print out your article. I know that seems so old school, but you want to print it out. And you want to pick up a pen. And what you're going to do is really do a reading of your article for evidence. You want to review each paragraph to make sure that your evidence is clear. Does your interpretation of the evidence progress logically, and does it have explanatory power? Does it make a note about what works and what, sorry, let me back up for a minute. All right, after you make sure that it's logical and has explanatory power, you want to make a note of what actually works and what doesn't work, right? Then you want to go back again and review each paragraph to make sure that your evidence supports the argument. If you have evidence in there and it doesn't move your argument forward, you don't need your evidence there, right? So make a note or you need to refocus the paragraph around your argument. Maybe that is the perfect point, perfect piece of evidence. You just haven't set it up in a way that actually handles your argument. So you may decide to refocus the paragraph, or you may decide to just get rid of it altogether, but you want to make sure that that happens. So those are my recommendations for editing on the basis of evidence. And this is not just about academic articles. I think there's a lot of this that applies to writing legal work as well, right? Because you need to be able to marshal the facts of the situation to the law, and you want to make sure that you're always marshaling facts to drive your argument, to make an argument, a particular argument about the law, right? So next week I am going to do my last in the series of editing about editing for grammar, and I think we all think we know what we're doing here, but it's helpful to get a hand with that. Just a few announcements. If you scroll down on the left side of your page of Michelle Dion Thompson Life Coach, you can go ahead and sign up for my my newsletter if you're an academic. And after this video uploads, I will put in a link for those of you who are lawyers. So don't hesitate to do that. If you are a woman who is a lawyer, I have a product called Tribe of Legal Warriors. I would love to have you as part of it as we get together with other women in the field and figure out how we're going to move our personal lives and our careers forward. So if you click sign up, you too can become a member of Tribe. If you're a New Yorker, don't forget that there are meetups. Actually, today at 2, there's going to be a meetup for adjunct professors. I'd love to see you there. Otherwise, there's tomorrow and generally on Fridays, there's meetups for academic writers. Go to the meetup page and look it up, and you can meet us, and we'd love to have you. My next writing tip will be Friday at 1:30, and I will be talking about editing for grammar and other writing bugaboos. And don't forget my planning series. There's so much you're getting from me. Don't forget my video on planning issues. I'm on the next to last, if I'm correct, installment next Thursday at 10 a.m. You can catch me here at Facebook Live to do that. And finally, there's One Academic Thing every Wednesday, 11 to 11:30 on Twitter chat. And there you can tell me one thing you would change in your daily academic life to make your life go better. And there's also One Legal Thing, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. And you can tell me one thing that you would change about your work as a lawyer that would make your job go better. Whew, that was a lot. Have a great weekend, and I will see you next week.